Tired of dealing with annoying flies, fruit flies, and gnats in your home? The Zevo Flying Insect Trap is your ultimate solution. Don't wait. Check out the link in the video description now to get your Zevo Flying Insect Trap on Amazon and enjoy a bug-free home today.
As reader is worried that, with problems at Xbox and PlayStation, there's more riding on the success of Nintendo's next console than people realize. Nintendo has been the market leader for 4 of the 7 generations they have been involved in, 5 if you count the Switch as the best seller of both this gen and last gen, but they've never been very interested in acting as a figurehead for the industry. Before this generation, Sony execs used to love talking about being custodians of console gaming, but that sort of thing is not Nintendo's style. They always seem very separate to the Xbox and PlayStation world, with people regularly talking about console wars and the future of the industry without even mentioning Nintendo. This isn't usually done out of disrespect but because everyone recognizes that Nintendo does whatever it wants and don't react to, or even really interact with, the things their would-be rivals are doing. But this upcoming generation isn't going to be like any other. Xbox hardware sales are in the toilet and it's hard to believe they're even making a next-gen console, let alone that they'll do again if this one fails. At the same time, the PlayStation 5 has stalled, with console sales starting to drop much earlier than expected and software releases slowing to crawl. Nintendo is doing great, but if the Switch 2 is another Wii U, then that could be disastrous for everyone. The problem here is that publishers are short-sighted to the point of utter stupidity. The only thing that matters to them is short-term profit, and while they've had decades to do something about the completely predictable problem of rising development costs, they've done absolutely nothing. And even now that the earthquake has struck, they're still not doing anything different. I'm not putting Nintendo on a pedestal here either. They've also talked about rising costs and, as another reader recently pointed out, not in the context of it being something they could do anything about, but an inevitability that it sounds like they're not even going to try to avoid. Nintendo isn't perfect. They make bad decisions and even, occasionally, bad games. Some of their consoles have been huge successes, but as well as their 4 market leaders, they also made the N64, the GameCube, and the Wii U. All had great games on them, but all sold peanuts compared to Xbox and PlayStation. So, the idea of the Switch 2 being a flop is not at all silly. It's not likely, I would say, given the success of this gen. But remember that the follow-up to the PlayStation 2, the best-selling console of all time, was the PlayStation 3, which was Sony's worst-selling home console by a wide margin. Success can make you overconfident, and that's certainly something we've seen with Nintendo before. So consider a worst-case scenario next gen, where the Xbox Series Y/Z sells just as bad as the last 2 generation, the PlayStation 6 suffers from poor first-party support and the short legs of its predecessor, and the Switch 2 turns out to be some bizarro console whose controller works by breathing on it, or whatever weird gimmick Nintendo makes up, and still has outdated graphics. None of those things are impossible and all have happened before to some degree or another. And then where will the concept of consoles be? Xbox is already trying to sideline them, but for Nintendo it's all they've got. Sony too, really, given we've seen nothing of any streaming plans they might have. Why is Astrobot trolling fans about the lack of new games on PS5? Readers feature. Video game innovation is dead and that's okay, readers feature. Bungie CEO blamed for job losses after spending $2.3 million on classic cars. I'm not getting a PS5 Pro because of how Sony handled the PSVR 2, readers feature. I worry that the games industry is at a crossroads and the people in charge don't really know where they're going, and the ones in the most commanding position at the moment are just as likely to blow themselves up as continue their success. If the Switch 2 fails, there may not be anything left of the console industry to try again. By Reader Ishii. The reader's features do not necessarily represent the views of Game Central or US News. You can submit your own 500 to 600 word reader feature at any time, which if used will be published in the next appropriate weekend slot. Just contact us at gamecentral@metro.co.uk or use our Submit Stuff page and